Hello, everyone. My name's Nick. Welcome back to Pop Sub Club. I am here with director, writer, cinematographer, all-around cool guy, Oley Sassone, who's probably best known for directing the ill-fated 1994 Fantastic Four film. Some might say ill-fated. I say underrated. But, Oley, how are you doing today?
Hey Nick, doing great. I'm really glad to be here, and I'm always happy to talk to the fans, not only the Fantastic Four fans, but Marvel Universe fans and comic book fans in general. Always happy to.
That's awesome. And we're happy to chat with you as well. I mean, for one, myself, I've been a Fantastic Four fan since I was a little kid. A lot of people's big three is probably Spider-Man, Hulk, and Wolverine. Mine was Spider-Man, Wolverine, and just the Fantastic Four in general. One of my first toys was an Invisible Woman that could turn invisible in the fridge. I've been telling everyone about that because it was like a core memory I remember recently. So,
yeah, well, Fantastic Four, I have to say, Spider-Man was he was the guy for me. When I was a kid, I was a big Spider-Man fan, and Fantastic Four was certainly right there as well. But Spider-Man was first, Fantastic Four was second, and I was more of a Marvel Universe kid and fan because I could really, I think, like most of the fans in that universe, can relate to the fact that they're like us. They're normal people, that something unusual happens to them, and then they become extraordinary people, from some circumstance. And everybody knows, I don't need to get into all the details, but obviously Spider-Man, gets bitten by a spider, and then Fantastic Four gets sent up in space and get hit by some kind of weird gamma ray or whatever it was. But they're normal people with all the normal issues, that they don't shake any of those personal issues or issues that just people have, and just human beings in general have. And that's what I liked about it, is that they were still having to put up with parents and any of
the day to day.
The day-to-day living of human foibles,
Absolutely. That's why I've always been a Marvel fan, because of that. The relatability is unbeatable.
At the end of the day, they still had to put the garbage out.
Yeah, that's very true. It was funny. I saw, I'm in contact with Craig Nevius, the writer of the Fantastic Four, and he sent me a still of when they had to basically become Hollywood stars in their own movie because they got evicted from the Baxter Building. And I'm like, that's just the kind of stuff you don't get anywhere but Marvel. And I think that's part of the charm of those characters in particular, Spider-Man especially. I mean, I think we all can relate to not having enough for rent 1 month, or having to scrounge up something. Like, it's the type of stuff that makes it timeless,
Indeed.
But before we get into the Fantastic Four of everything, I also love to hear about the stories of the people that I interview. And I would love to know, like, what was your career like? How did you get into filmmaking before 1994 and the Fantastic Four?
I guess it started with going to the movies one day to see the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night.
Mm-hmm.
Just a kid. And the thing that I had to say, that I was a big Beatle fan, and I'm a guitar player, and I played in bands, and I still play in bands, for fun. We play rock and roll. I was actually in a punk band back in the day.
A big punk band. That's awesome.
Yeah, called Sex Dog. And it was, look, but we were actually a very good band, and I have to tell you, some of the stuff we wrote is quite good. And then, but yeah, I was a big Beatle fan, and then Rolling Stones, and and Led Zeppelin, and all those guys, and I became a guitar player, and I have a really nice collection of guitars, and a few of them are like just vintage,
mm-hmm.
that I've collected over the years, and so from playing music, there was another band called the Rat Finks that would open for us. They were like kids, 16 years old. They even weren't they weren't old enough to go into the bar where we were playing, and they said, well, they're gonna check our IDs, man. I said, no, dude, you're in the band, don't worry about it. You're gonna play, don't worry, you're playing music here. But those guys went off and got signed to CBS Records. and they became a band. They changed the name to the Red Rockers.
Okay.
And they did a really cool song for CBS called China. And at this point, I was shooting commercials, and I had a 5-ton equipment truck. I had 16 millimeter camera. I had all the stuff, and I was still playing music. And they said, "Hey, man, why don't we do something? Let's do a video." And I said, "Yeah, let's do a video. That's great, man. Let's do it." I called CBS Records, and they said, "Yeah, go ahead, but we're not giving you any money. We don't know who the hell you are, and you give it your best shot. And if you get something done within a month or so, let us know. But otherwise, the band's coming to New York, and we're going to do a video."
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "All right," and I hung up the phone. I'm like, "Oh shit!" So I put up $7,500 of my own money, and then raised $7,500 from a guy who owned Mushroom Records, which is a record store near Tulane University, and we made the video for $15,000. And back then, we didn't have any internet or any of that stuff. 16 millimeter film on a flatbed editing machine. And I called the executive at CBS in New York, and I said, "Look, we got the video. It's done." She said, "All right, well, I'm coming down there." Real New Yorker. I said, "I'm going to come down there, and I'm going to look at that. If you don't have a video, I'm going to be really pissed off." I said, "Don't worry. Come on down. We got something to show you." She flies down. She walks in the editing room. We sit her down at the flatbed. We turn it on. She looks at the video, and she goes, "Oh, this is fucking great. I'm buying it. I'm buying it. This is great." That's how it all started. Thankfully, the Red Rockers were really good friends of mine at the time, and they trusted me, and they gave me the opportunity. But we took the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and we did it. And Nick, here's the trip, man. That video, like all of the videos that I've directed, it's on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
So anybody can go to YouTube and look up Red Rockers China. They'll see the video, and we turned the Pirates Alley in the French Quarter in New Orleans into a little Chinese market. And at the time, I mean, this is like early '80s, man. So, but it still holds up. It looks great. And CBS started sending me all over the country to start doing videos for their other artists, and I ended up doing the Romantics in Los Angeles. And a friend of mine in the advertising world said, "Oh, you got to call these people while you're out there." And I called them, and they visited the set. They sent a rep over to the set. Guy just came over, said hello, he sat quietly on the side, watched us work, and then he gave me his card, and he said, "Just come see us before you leave LA." And I said, "Okay." So I went to see him, and he said, "How would you like to move to Los Angeles?" I said, "Well, I guess." and they moved me to LA, paid for all my moving expenses, and then put me on a retainer. I don't remember, it was $3,000 or $4,000. I think it was like $4,000 a month, just whether I worked or not, which was a pretty good way to go to LA.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, I ended up directing, about 100 music videos, and I worked with Eric Clapton, Bonnie Raitt, and John Lee Hooker, Gloria Estefan, Celine Dion, Bruce Hornsby, Jerry Lee Lewis. I did the music video for Great Balls of Fire. I did videos for Charlie Daniels' band. I did, just a beautiful array. And Eric Clapton, of course, being a guitar player, we started talking about guitars, and he goes and gets his 1960s Sunburst Les Paul, brings it on set.
Nice.
And Eric Clapton takes the guitar out of the case and hands it to me. It's like being in the Sistine Chapel, when God has got the. It's like Eric Clapton handed me his guitar, man. And so I ended up jamming with him a little bit, and that's how it all started, really. And then from doing music videos, I made a short film with the late great Bill Paxton.
Wow.
Who was in Aliens, and
Mm-hmm.
really great guy, man. And then my manager showed the film around, and I got a gig making a film before that I co-wrote a script with a really good friend of mine from college who was a big television producer at that time at Disney. and he helped. In fact, without him, it would have never happened. But we got the movie Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken
Nice.
produced at Disney, and that was based on a true story. I thought I had a DVD of it laying around here somewhere, but that was based on a true story because my parents, especially my mother, in the summertime said, you know, keep us out of trouble. We did volunteer work, and one of them was a volunteer work at a lighthouse for the blind. And she says, "Oh, you got to meet that lady over there. She's got a really interesting story. She was a diving horse girl in the 1930s, you know, where a woman gets on the back of a horse and goes off of a tower that's 30 feet in the air into a big tank of water." That was like the thing to do back then, you know, before television and everything. So anyway, we got that movie made, and then I directed my first film for Roger Corman, called Forced to Fight. And the star of that film, besides the, you know, Don the Dragon, because it was a kickboxing film essentially that took place in a prison, I had the wonderful opportunity to work with Richard Roundtree, who was the original Shaft, the movie Shaft, man. And he just passed away this past year. God rest his soul. He was such a beautiful man and such a great actor, and he was just a wonderful guy to work with. And because somebody like that being in a movie, you know, a Roger Corman genre film, his presence and his artistry and what he elevated the whole movie. And sure enough, we make this prison movie, and we shot it in 18 days, and, you know, it was all at the Lincoln Heights jail. We got a really great review in Variety, which is unheard of at the time for a low budget, no budget Roger Corman movie, but it did turn out very well.
It's awesome.
And yeah, and that's how Roger trusted me to make another film for him. And then I was in LA driving around. I don't remember what I was doing at the time, but always looking for work.
Yeah.
And I got the call from Roger asking me if I wanted to direct the movie, The Fantastic Four. And I had to pull over on the side of the road. I know I was somewhere in Hollywood, and I pulled off, and I had my little flip phone. I said, "Whoa, wait, say that again, Roger. You want to do what?" He says, "Oh, Oley, we're going to do a movie about the Fantastic Four." And I said, "You talking about Marvel Comics Fantastic Four?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Well, are you interested in directing the film?" And I just blurted it out. I said, "Hell yeah." I knew there was going to be no budget. I didn't know anything other than it was the Fantastic Four, and I just jumped at it. Little did I know what was going to transpire, that, you know, we're going to get into that. But I figured it was Roger Corman. We're not going to have any money. But, you know, it was the Fantastic Four. So that's how that all started, and I got into doing it. So
wow. Well, I think one of my favorite things about the industry, and your story proves it entirely, is that cascade effect of just knowing people, right place, right time, connections, opportunities. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, to touch back on your music video experience, what was your most favorite genre to direct? Because you went through a wide array of musical genres just in that alone.
Well, you know, we were doing mostly pop and rock. You know, most of the MTV, early MTV stuff was that. Every now and then I'd be able to do an R&B artist, which was always great because, you know, I'm from New Orleans, man, and I grew up around, you know, R&B and soul and jazz, and, you know, black music culture is a big part of my life growing up here. And to this day, I know a lot of cats, and we can talk about, you know, some of the things that I'm working on now in a minute. But
Totally.
you know, I always said, Nick, you know, if you want to make a really good video, you have to have a great song. You know, and that determines it. It inspires you to come up with some really compelling images, and also if you've got a great song already to begin with, you know, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
Because people are going to listen to it regardless. But that's an inspiring thing for me, is that because every now and then I get some really, really bad songs, you know, and the only way you got the gig is if you listen to the song, you write the concept, you present the concept to the band and the management companies or whomever, record companies. If they dig the concept, then and of course you have to do it for the budget.
Yeah.
You know, and back then we were doing videos for between $50,000 and $100,000 all in,
Yeah.
you know, and that's how you got the gig. But, you know, I'd listen to really bad songs and I'd go, oh, I can't, this is not going to work. And then I'd have an idea what the concept was. And then I'd go find some really great songs by Jimi Hendrix or somebody else to help inspire me to come up with an idea for a bad song. But the really great songs, and the one that I really am proudest of, I mean, all of them, there's some very good ones, I think. But the one that turned out really well, because it was absolutely a great song, is Mr. Broken Wings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on YouTube as well. And that's just a beautiful song. And the middle of it had such a beautiful break in it that inspired me to make the bird, you know, that he's following, and the hawk, that we had a trained hawk, to a certain extent, obviously, but it inspired me to feel like the hawk was almost like a spirit,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that was leading him on a path, and the spirit manifests itself on his journey. He takes a break and he goes into a church, and we're shooting at the San Fernando Mission, and a beautiful old church there. And while he's in the church contemplating whatever he is contemplating in his journey in that video, the spirit shows up in the window above, and we put the God light on it, you know, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful video. And that moment in the song and the music, to this day, it still gives me chills when I see that moment of that hawk flapping its wing in the backlight and then flying down into the church. And I tried like heck to get a big wide shot of that bird flying all the way down, you know, through the church. But as many times as we get it, he had to land in one spot right on the back of a pew where the lead singer was sitting. Richard was sitting, and just couldn't get it in the wide shot. But we did it in 2 shots, and it still worked out beautifully. And there's a shot of Richard laying back before the bird shows up, and he's got his head back and his arms like on the back of the pew like a cross, you know. And that I got inspired from watching the movie Giant, and James Dean there's a famous photograph of the actor James Dean with I think it was like a Winchester or something that he had across his shoulders, a gun, you know, and he's got his arms like this over the gun, you know, and Elizabeth Taylor's like below him looking up, and it's a shot, it's a scene of the crucifix. I mean, that's it. He's Jesus essentially, and Elizabeth Taylor's Mary, you know. I mean, and that kind of stuff always looked for those kind of images that, you know, people were inspired to come up with these ideas, actors, directors, writers. In a visual world, in the movie business, you come up with something that's symbolic, you know, that is, so you're saying something more than just using the dialogue.
Yeah.
It's a motion picture. It's a picture. Symbolically, what can you do to help convey the intention of that scene or that moment in the actor's scene? What is it that it's got? I always look for those kind of things as those references and symbolism and so on and so forth in any movie I watch. And of course, I don't think today they really care about that stuff that much, but I just thought it's not just about making great shots, and that's important too, because when I met Bill Paxton, I met him because at our production company in Los Angeles, one day we're in there, and unbeknownst to me and some of us that were working. I was a director for the company. I wasn't a producer. In walks James Cameron with Bill Paxton.
Oh man.
And I'm going, holy shit. I said, that's them. And they go and they have a meeting in the conference room and so on and so forth. And it turns out that they hired our company to produce a music video for Bill Paxton and his band called Martini Ranch at the time. And James Cameron was directing the video for Bill Paxton. And then I became friends with Bill, and that's how he was in my first film, because he said, yeah, let's do it, man. He was a really cool guy from Austin, Texas, or from Fort Worth, I think. But anyway, really cool guy. And I got to be I'm not going to say I was good friends with him, but James Cameron was kind enough and friendly enough, and just as I'd like to say at that time, a fellow filmmaker, I asked him a few things about movies and such, and I said, going back to what I was just referencing about imagery, and I said, well, if there was one thing, that you had to say about directing, what would it be? And he just, without hesitation, he said, hey man, you got to know where to put the camera. Know where to put the camera.
That is deceptively simple.
Boom. That was it. Boom. He said that was it. And and I know from reading a lot of biographies and studying film, like John Huston said, his directing style is, well, I did most of my directing and casting. And there's some truth to that too, because he worked with some of the greats, and somebody like Humphrey Bogart, when he would cast Humphrey Bogart, you knew what you were going to get, and you could see, and you read stories about people in the film industry that, oh, I wrote this script specifically for Robert Redford, or I wrote it specifically for this girl or that person or this actor or that actress, because that's the way they see it. That's the way they characterize it. And
yeah,
there's some truth in what John Huston said about his directing style, and in casting was important. But James Cameron, man, was obviously his. But Morgan, he started where I started. He started at Roger Corman.
Interesting.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, James Cameron was driving a truck, and he. I don't know exactly what he was doing at the time, but a director on another film called Piranha.
Joe Dante, right?
Yeah, I don't remember, but it was Piranha 2.
Oh,
doing the sequel, and the director, something happened, the director fell out or something, and James Cameron got the gig. Huh. And that's how he got started, and it was Roger Corman.
That's awesome. That's so funny how that all, again, that's just that cascade effect of just like, cause and effect, trial and error, all of that stuff. That's so interesting.
Right place, right time, brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned like your whole story, and even just this answering this last question, it sounds like Fantastic Four was a long time coming for you in directing that film. And that's awesome that you're able to create, what I feel is one of the most faithful to the comics feeling adaptations in a long time. Were there any shots in the film that you felt were as good as like your eagle shot in the music video that you still look at today and you're like, man, that was hot. That was awesome.
Well, it is a combination of things that when you say a really cool shot, it's what's in the frame that makes it a good shot.
Yeah.
Aside from really good acting and so on and so forth, but just looking at it from a visual perspective, I have to give really great credit to Mick Strawn, who was the production designer for Fantastic Four, because, and I think in I always like stuff that is kind of mysterious and dark and noirish and anything out of the ordinary. There's obviously, symbolically speaking, there's good reasons to have a sunny room, and at the end of In fact, at the end of movies like uh, Key Largo, when after the storm had passed and the bad guys are all gone and everything's, what's her name? Humphrey Bogart's wife goes over, and she wasn't the wife in the movie. I'm talking about his wife in real life, Lauren Bacall. She goes over and it's like, the storm's passed, all this bad stuff is gone. And she goes over and opens the window and pushes open the blinds to the window, and they put the God light out there, So symbolically, once again, it's like, there it is. That's symbolism showing a light. And Nick Strawn did some really beautiful things. And I think in regards to some of the best looking stuff, I mean, the Fantastic Four, the office and everything in the lab and all that stuff looks cool, but it was in the jeweler's lair, underground in the jeweler's lair. And that stuff, man. And this was in a little shithole of a space where it was a former lumberyard, man. And we studied photographs and drawings from German Expressionism because, and we watched Tim Burton's Batman, which was also an inspiration to us. And we said, look how much more you can accomplish with seeing less. You don't have to see every detail. Let the imagination of the audience fill in the dark spots and the shadows by just affecting the space with enough of the foreground and background elements to give them a sense of what this space is all about. And we had a couple shots in the film where we put green screen on the floor, and the actors, they get shot, and then he falls. Well, I got a shot of him. It was Patrick Statham. I'm so sorry, I forgot how to say his last name. But he was the stunt guy. He was the stunt coordinator for the film. And he gets shot, and he falls off of the deck in the space where we're shooting. And I think he falls all of like 2.5 feet. But he's fallen into a green screen on a pad, and then we take his body and shrink it to look like he's fallen into a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
So it's just, but it was the rocky, broken floor and walls and stuff that Mick had designed and built, where we could go and have some interesting light hitting it from below or from the side. And Mark Perry, the DP, did a beautiful job with the whole film, but those scenes in particular, he made those great shots. It was a combination of things. Yeah, I knew where to put the camera. We discussed it. We all talked about it, but it was that art direction and that combination of art direction and really great lighting to create the scene. That's how you get a good shot.
Yeah.
You got to have all those elements. Whatever's inside that frame constitutes a good shot.
Absolutely, for sure. That's awesome. I think one of my favorite shots in that movie is probably towards the beginning when they're going to go on their mission, and then the Storm's mom is like, "Look at you guys, you're the Fantastic Four." Like the shot of the four of them, with they coming through the door. That was so it felt like a comic book. It was so cool. It just I feel like it captured everything that was supposed to be the thesis for the movie. Family, togetherness, adventure, all of that stuff. And I mean, when you got the call that you were given the opportunity to direct this movie, before you had read a script, before you knew the budget, before anything, was there anything that you felt you wanted to put in the film, whether it was in there or not, like a character or a moment, or just was there something from you remembered as a kid that you were like, ooh, I want to put that in the movie?
Let me think about that. I guess, out of all of the characters, I had I kind of, even though I was a skinny little kid, I identified with the Thing because he was an outcast. And I felt, you know, because me being artistic, I guess, I wasn't that much into sports. You know, I mean, I ran track in high school, and then we'd run around the track and then go behind the gym and smoke a cigarette. You know, badass. But you know, I don't know, man. I identified with the thing, and because, you know, he was, I think, the one character that really shows the complexity of somebody who's not considered normal, you know. And I think anybody who has artistic streak in their body or their blood or their mind or their efforts, their work, whatever, and if you're not in an environment that, like, there was no art school for me to go to in high school like there is now. There's great arts conservatories here and there, but so back then you're kind of like on your own, you know, to be able to, and you congregate and find other like-minded kids and people, and man, they picked on us, you know. They would pick on us all the time because we were different, you know. I mean, we didn't take any shit from them, you know, but at the same time, it was like, oh fuck, here comes this guy now with his bullshit. You know, and I was in high school, man. I related to movies. I was always into watching movies. I love movies, and because of the Beatles and the English, you know, invasion, the British invasion, I looked for English movies on television, and I found them. Very rarely, but I found them. And then I'd go to the art house theater to watch English films, and then being introduced to French New Wave and French black and white, and something about, and even old Hollywood movies, black and white movies. I went to a revival house that showed, you know, two-reelers, man, not two-reelers, but double features. And I would go, man, on a Saturday afternoon, and I'd sit in that movie theater by myself from, you know, for 3-4 hours, you know, just eating popcorn and milk duds and watching old black and white movies from Hollywood that were made in the 1930s. But I just loved them. I love the world, the backlight. I can even remember in a movie that was one of my favorites that back then, called The China Seas, with Clark Gable and the blonde bombshell back then. She died young, man. She died when she was 27 years old. I can't believe I'm blanking on it right now, but I'll think of it in a second. She was at Dinner at 8 and all these really great films.
It wasn't Marilyn Monroe though, right?
No.
Mansfield?
No. Oh, damn it.
Those are the only two I remember off the top of my head.
Just terrible. Anyway, but the thing that I recall about him is just in the night scenes that they would do, the backlit scenes when they were kissing and stuff, and I still remember the beautiful backlight, and they had these filters back then that they used. They were called Mitchell filters, and the camera was a Mitchell, and I can remember just the glistening light off of the girls' lips from the glossy lipstick that they would put on back in the 1930s and 40s. And it just fascinated me. All of those little details to me were just moving. It was a moving experience for me to go to the movies and watch this stuff. And that's, you know, and then I'd have to walk out in the real world and then kind of like shuffle around and not tell anybody how excited I was about seeing, you know, back lip glistening on a woman's lips on a movie screen. Because somebody say, "What the fuck are you talking about, man?" You know, it was just that kind of depth of just feeling for and getting caught up and lost in that world, you know, of movies and the characters. And anyway, what were we talking about? So
if there were any particular moments from your past, and it could be even an inspiration from what you just watched, of like you wanted to interject that into the or inject that into the Fantastic Four, like maybe a shot or like a moment, something like that?
Well, look, the stuff that I wanted to do obviously was some of the special effects stuff, like Johnny Storm, man. I wanted to, when he flames on, man, I wanted to do some really great stuff. And of course, when the reality sunk in and said, damn it, man, we don't have the money or the wherewithal to do the visual effects that not only that I imagined being in the film, that were already created from Jack Kirby and the comic books and what were drawn, and try to get that style, of. And I went to the Golden Apple in LA,
the
comic book store, after I got the gig, and I said, I got it. I went there looking for Fantastic Four issue #1, the first one, and I found them. And they had, they not the originals. These were
the facsimile.
They had reproductions of the original comic. Issue #1, #2, #3. They had all these hardbound, like hardbound copies. I mean, they would put 10 issues and it's all beautifully, hardbound. Anyway, I bought every issue they had of the #1, and I think it was about a dozen of them, and I took them all and I handed them out to everybody, the heads of the department, actors, anybody that wanted them. I said, here's the template for the movie, folks. This is it. We're not going to do anything better than what they've already created. Now we have to translate what they created in the look, the feel, the characters, the sincerity of it, everything about that first issue. This was it, because this was the beginning of how they got their power. It's kind of like what they're doing with the new one that's coming out. It's like first steps. Fantastic Four, first steps. Well, the movie we made was the first steps. They weren't the Fantastic Four until they went in up in space and became, charged with all this superpower chemicals or whatever it is that they got zapped with, And, so I really wanted to do, from my perspective as a kid, because, when you're doing movies like that, you're doing these kind of things, it's like when Spielberg was doing E.T. and all of his, he had pinball machines in his office at Universal, and he said, and toys and things. He just, I just never want to stop feeling like a kid on some level, Yeah, I mean, there's a big responsibility to making a movie. You've got a lot of stuff to handle and be aware of, so you'd stay on time and on budget. But regardless, you don't want to lose that childlike, sort of energy and feeling that. Because if you could tap into some of that when you're making these kind of films, I think it helps guide you and helps you convey, what it is that you're trying to put on the screen. And I really wanted to do it like, and I think that's where I think we succeeded in on some level more than the bigger films that followed, because, and it's not me saying that, the fan base has made me aware of it. I mean, I know how hard it is to get movies made, period. How hard it is to get the job, how hard it is to make a successful film. And the movie business, just in its nature of itself, you never know. Nobody ever really knows what's going to click. There's no guarantee. But I think if you start with somebody else's material, you have to look at the material for what it is and what the intention of the author. What was his intention or her intention? You have a responsibility, to budget and schedule, but first and foremost, you have a responsibility to the material.
Mhm.
And those guys created something that I grew up with. So I felt really, really responsible to say, I have got to get this right. I have got to say, this is, and I would go back and rely on those childhood feelings and experiences that I had when I was reading those comic books. And I would go outside in the backyard and play like I was a superhero, jumping off a swing set or getting on my bicycle and riding crazy down the street, what we used to do, and set up garbage cans and just literally just crash into them like a bunch of nuts. But that was like, we were energized to do that and behave like that because we were inspired. You know, we'd go to the movies and I'd see Hercules, you know, in a movie theater, and we'd come back and the first thing we'd do, get garbage can tops and broomsticks and beat the hell out of each other, and, you know, and try to act like Hercules and stuff, you know. But that's the nature of being an imaginative child and having the freedom to behave like that, you know, because my parents were always like, yeah, you know, leave the kid alone, let him have some fun. So yeah, that's, you know, it's really, you have to be responsible to what someone else has created, and they're going to hand you this in order now. And it wasn't just what I was thinking. I wanted to be like the fans out there. I wasn't making this movie for me specifically. I was making a movie for my career and the things that I felt as a filmmaker and wanted to do. However, with this kind of material, it's bigger, it's global, it's just a bigger thing and a bigger responsibility. So, and I know the actors felt the same way. Most of the crew, I know the guys that like from Optic Nerve, the guys that built The Thing and Doctor Doom, you know, John Vulich and Everett Burrell and Carl Chiafalio, who played The Thing in the rubber suit that was excruciatingly hot. I mean, everybody, I think, went out there with the intention of being true to that creation, to that comic book, to that first issue. And I think that's why our film, even though it's low budget and doesn't have the big special effects, it does stay true to the characters, and it has the heart and soul of those characters. And to me, that's really where I feel we succeeded.
Yeah.
Being true. And that's why to this day, I'm not discouraged really about that. Yeah, to a degree, sure, they took the film away from us and didn't tell us anything about it. It was all a big lie. But we all know we did a good job and to the best of our ability for what we had. And once again, it's the fan base that tells us if we've done a good job or if we screwed it up, you know. So, and I think most of the fans agree that our film still stands alone. So
it's true. I mean, you know, I had the privilege of watching the movie around. I knew about it when I was a kid. I was born in '94, and when I was like in like the 2000s, I would read Wizard magazine, and it was on the list of like 50 greatest comic movies of all time, and it was there. And that was the first I'd heard of it. And it wasn't until high school that I actually was able to find it and watch it. And I recently learned, especially after watching the trailers to the newest film, to add as a testament to what you just said about faithfulness and the adaptation, I am almost 100% certain that your film is the only one where the Thing organically says it's clobbering time, and there's no like precedence to it in a way that like kind of feels forced. I think maybe in the 2005 film he said it, but you guys did it first. Like I know oh no, I'm sorry, it was this one, because in the 2005 one he got it from a toy. In the 2015 one, he got it from an abusive older brother, which is a terrible origin point, if you ask me. And then apparently the one, it's from a cartoon. So you guys are the only film where the Thing says it's clobbering time because it's...
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either until literally like earlier this week, and it hit me like a Mack truck. And I was like, wow, this movie is wild for how much it captures the core values of the Fantastic Four. You know, I loved them not because they were superheroes, but because they were a family of adventurers. Like I read that series like I'm reading an old, or watching an old episode of Star Trek or Land of the Lost or something. And this movie was like it always captures that to me. I still go back to it fondly of just like that 90s retro art deco futuristic feel of Marvel from that time. It's just so nostalgic to me. So you guys
Very cool, man. Thank you for saying that. That's good.
no problem.
But I didn't know that about the It's Clobbering Time. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. That's interesting.
That's so cool. I don't know why. I mean, I don't think writers are necessarily afraid of anything, but I don't know why it was so hard to just have him say a fun catchphrase. I mean, I don't know. It's not on my pay grade for sure, but you know, it is what it is. But I think that the movie is something special, and I would love to see it with a higher budget, some scrubbing here to make things look a little more
yeah, like it's supposed to look.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of how things are supposed to look, and you know, obviously we have to touch on what happened with the film, the unfortunate outcome in that it was never released, and you guys found out at such terrible times in post-production. I was just curious because I know you've mentioned it before in the Doom documentary. I'm sure it's mentioned in the book itself as well. But you know, what was like, you know, not to bring up any old wounds, if you will, but like, what was that experience like having to find out what all of you guys would work so hard on, just the fate of it, I suppose.
Well, it's kind of multi-pronged wounds. First and foremost, you know, when you work really hard on anything, a movie, a painting, a song, a book, you know, building a dollhouse for your kid or whatever it may be, you know, you put your all into it, and the at the end of the day, the final outcome is supposed to be a feeling of satisfaction that, you know, job well done, you accomplished it, you did what you were set out to do, and the people that hired us, we delivered on time and certainly on budget. So that was the first thing. We said, okay, and there was no satisfaction, or I should say, we were self-satisfied, but the people around us, because we felt abandoned at the last minute and couldn't figure out why, we said, what did we do wrong? Why are we, you know, why are they not telling us job well done? And like I've always gotten in the past and I'm not talking about people coming up and kissing my ass and patting me on the back and all that stuff. Just saying, hey man, good job, brother. You know, let's go. This is great, man. You guys killed it. Just something, but we heard nothing from anybody about the work that we did.
Wow.
It was all of a sudden, it was just like, okay, now, we've just finished the movie. Does anybody care? Apparently not. You know, so that was the first thing. Second thing is, when you make a movie, you know, you're always using that project and that business to get your next gig. And you want that you want some accolade, you want some applause, but more importantly, you want to be able to wow the industry particularly enough. And that comes from the audience, that comes from the fans, that comes from box office, that comes from ticket sales, that comes from the buzz, that comes from, so all of the stuff that we were hoping that was going to go with the film, that creates all of that stuff, the money, the box office, the accolades, the buzz, you know, so it stirs the people in the industry to pay attention to us as filmmakers, to say, yeah, those guys are on our radar. Let's hire them for the next gig. Then you got your agent can go out and sell, you know, oh, look what they did. Look, I'm representing so-and-so who just, you know, not us in particular, but, you know, all of a sudden an actor wins an Academy Award, is nominated for Academy Award, or something great happens, or the movie just made, you know, $100 million, or it made 10 million based, you know, we could have probably at that time you know, the movie was made for, who knows, really, $1 million, $1.5 million. We don't know for sure.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't much. Obviously, it was under $2 million, regardless. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, movie at that time, we went to the comic book convention at the Shrine Auditorium just to show a 5 or 10 minute clip, and man, the freaking line was around the block.
That says a lot.
From the fans just wanting to come in and see it. And people were in there, they were applauding. Because we cut together a really good trailer from the best moments, and of course we downplayed the visual effect part of it because it just didn't really exist. But regardless, they really were. We thought, okay, hey, we're gonna make this thing's gonna get released. We did it for no money. If the movie breaks out and makes $5 or $10 million on a $1 million investment, people are going to pay attention in that business. That's what they do. You know,
Yeah.
They say, oh, he made a little indie movie and it broke out. And you look at little movies like Honora, you know, or The Whale, you know. I think the movie was made for something like $5 million and made $60 million at the box office. And Brendan Fraser won an Academy Award for Best Actor.
Yeah.
So I mean that was the when I talk about, you know, multi-pronged, you know, wounds, it was all of that. And then of course the ultimate wound was when we found out that the truth, you know, that they lied to us about, you know, and I guess you couldn't really say they lied to us because we never asked them point blank.
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing to this with this movie? You know, we never said anything up front wasn't really, they were hiding the facts, let's put it that way,
Mm-hmm.
from us. And that really was kind of like a blow at the time. You know, it's like, God damn it, man. How much harder can it get out here, man? It's like, we just busted our ass. We made a movie but you know, regardless, nobody wanted to finish the film, but we finished it.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God the post-production supervisor and one of the producers at Concord helped us on the side, completely on the sly.
Wow.
We would go out and shoot like I'm at this point I'm working at another company called Cinetel, and I hired the same editor, Glenn Garland, who did Fantastic Four, to come with me on the next movie, and we're editing the film over there. So this is after. Mind you, this is after I've already scouted, directed, shot another movie. We're still trying to finish the Fantastic Four.
Just so that you guys can finish
So
it.
we could finish it.
Yeah.
Because it was just, we said, how can we walk away from a movie that we worked so hard on? We're going to finish this fucker. We're not going to let it die.
Yeah.
And so we'd be editing the film at the time that I was hired to do. And then after hours, literally, we would take the elements that the post-production supervisor at Concord New Horizon was feeding into the pipeline under the name of another movie, and we get the elements, and Glenn Garland, here's all the little special effects elements that we wanted to add to the film after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this company, Mr. Film, come in and give us the best that they could possibly give us. And this was the stuff with Johnny Storm flaming on, Dr. Doom sitting in his throne, just a few things, you know, the F4 airplane, jet flying in to where Doom's castle was, just these little bits that we really needed to help tie some of the things together and try to give it a little bit of a special effects thrill, you know?
Yeah.
So these are all the little pieces that we would use. And then of course the infamous scene that I had to shoot with Mark Sykes dressed up in the Thing costume, jumping out of a van on Van Nuys Boulevard.
That night scene.
Yeah, he comes out when he goes up to these two women's on the sidewalk, you know, going, I'm not really who I am. And he's in the, you know, and I wanted to do a scene like out of The Elephant Man. And I've said this multiple times in many interviews where, you know, they're chasing the Elephant Man around in Paris somewhere. And they corner him down in a pissoir down underground. Mm-hmm. And they've got him cornered, and they're like, the mob is going to like you know, beat him to death or something. And he stops and he turns around and he looks at all these people frothing at the mouth, and he just comes out and says, "I am not an animal."
Mm-hmm.
Boom. It's still to this day when I think of that scene and I go, that was the thing, man.
Yeah, you're right.
He's like the Elephant Man. He was a freak.
Mm-hmm.
And I really
Persecuted for nothing.
yes, because he looked different, you know, and scary. And
Yeah.
but inside he had a heart and a soul, and and it just, that to me is such a universal story for so many people, especially today, man.
Absolutely.
I think it was just important to try to show, and of course we didn't have the budget to do a scene with a mob chasing the thing down
Yeah.
the street and cornering him. We have a couple good scenes in there though, when he's hiding out in the back of that restaurant, and the guy comes out and says, "Hey man, what are you doing back here? You can't be here." And he stands up and he scares the shit out of him, and
Yeah.
and then like I got the I got the guy to jump out of a van in the middle of the traffic in Van Nuys Boulevard in the Thing costume. I can only imagine what the people were thinking in the car sitting at the red light.
They're probably still talking about it, and they're like, I don't know what that was, but that guy looked weird.
Yeah, but you know, Nick, we did it because I went to that spot and scouted it, you know, a couple nights before, and I said, well, look, street lights and headlights, so we don't need any lights out there to shoot this at night. And I shot it. So,
but it's funny though, because not only is that one of my most favorite scenes in the movie, because again, speaking to the show don't tell, it tells us everything about what he's feeling and thinking, and honors the character without saying a word. And also it inadvertently feels the most different from the rest of the film, because you can even get some like that beginning introduction to Taxi Driver when he's just driving through the city. It's kind of got that noir feel to it, and it's a scene that I am so happy that you did. And honestly, you are part of sounds like a small group of people that we can thank for even getting this movie to the point that it has been ever since, because you guys made the movie, and you made it not for anything other than because you worked so hard. And I'm for one very thankful that it managed to get out there, which I guess leads me to my next question of, you know, how did you feel when you found out that this movie that you guys completed because you felt compelled to, actually made it out to the masses in some way? Like, what was that like?
well, it kind of happened in a interesting, circuitous route in a way. The producer, one of the producers at Concord, after all the shit hit the fan and they took everything away from us, even the editor and I, Glenn Garland, we went looking for the negative, or at least the work print, a copy of it, the answer print because I saw that they screened the answer print at Photochem, and when it first came out of the lab, and I went to look at it, and God bless those guys over there, man, because Roger, you know, we shot short ends and recans, and the emulsion numbers back then on all of, even today, if you have matching emulsion numbers from film that's pretty much made out from the same batch. So the problem is, if you don't have film that's matches, it comes out of the same batch, it makes it a little bit more difficult in the lab and the color correction process at the time to match everything. And we'd shoot scenes in the same scene, we'd have different, you know, recans and emulsion numbers, nothing matches. So they ended up having, you know, from one shot in the scene to the next shot, this one is more blue and this one's more green and this one's more red, and this, you know, and they just, but boy, they did a great job of color correcting everything meticulously at Photochem. And we screened the print, man, and it just, wow. I'll never forget it when I first saw that print for the first time come out of the lab, and it just looked so beautiful. And I thought, wow, you know, this movie looks pretty damn good, man. I think we're going to do okay with this. But then, of course, it disappeared, and Glenn Garland and I literally went into what was considered Roger's film vault, which was an old storage room where they used to keep the lumber for the lumber yard. Um, you know, it's like a scene out of anyway. I'm talking about too many old movies now, but
I love a good
yeah,
old movie.
yeah. Well, like Scooby Doo or something, or the Goonies. I mean, these kids going in there with flashlights, looking for something, and literally we were gonna pinch the print and go have a decent transfer made, so we could all, and then give it just for ourselves. We weren't gonna try to release it or do anything with it to make money or anything. We didn't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
But we could have probably gone to jail if somebody would have caught us with it and wanted to prosecute. But to our great disappointment, there was no film left. It was gone. It was already taken.
Wow.
They had confiscated it. Avi Arad had confiscated it. So what happened is one of the producers over there said, "Look, man, I know how you must feel," and he, on the side, handed me a 3/4 inch copy of the film that was made on the fly from the answer print, which means it wasn't like a real telecine. Telecine back then is that you would take the negative or even a really pristine answer print and run it through this machine that would literally put film reels on it, and then they got a guy at the controls that would look at the screen and make sure that every scene was perfectly color corrected.
Wow.
And the quality on the video was just the highest quality you could possibly get at the time. But we never had that opportunity. So I got a 3/4 inch, which wasn't the best transfer, but hey, it was something. And I brought it over to a dubbing house there. And back then they would, for like sitcoms and so on and so forth, they literally had walls of VHS machines and 3/4 inch tape machines, walls. So they would have the master up on someplace like on a 1-inch video master, or they used to have 2-inch video masters, and there was 1-inch video. So they would put the 1-inch video master up, and they'd strike 100 copies from 100 machines, all connected at one time, so they could get it out to the networks or whomever. So I brought my 3/4 inch over there and gave it to him and dropped it off one afternoon, and the guy, and because it was hot property, so to speak, I kind of told him, I said, "Look, I don't want to let a lot of people know I'm doing this. It's the producers allowing me to do this, so if you don't mind." And said, we'll take care of it. Just leave it here, and you come back tomorrow. We'll get it done tonight. So it's like one of those deals. So, so I go up next day. I pick up my. I think I got 2 copies on VHS and the 3/4 inch master, and I brought the 3/4 inch master back, and I had my copy, and I gave the copy, I think, to Glenn Garland. And next thing we know, there's a few months down the road, or a year or so later, whatever it was, there's copies of the movie showing up at comic book conventions. So luckily, and I say it luckily and happy, that whoever the technician was that night at the dubbing house knocked off a few copies for himself.
Yeah, I mean, you got to preserve film history, and that's what it is.
And got it out there, man. And but the problem is, once they got it out there, people were going from a VHS to a VHS to a VHS and dubbing it down and down and down, sharing copies. So the quality was really bad. I mean, and so when the fans were starting to watch it and going, this is awful. This is awful. Yeah. And even with that, there was the diehard fans would still look through the horrible image and go, wow, they did a great job with the characters, and we like it better than anything else. I mean, God bless the fans. I'll say it, and I'll say it again. God bless the Marvel fans and the Fantastic Four fans, because they know.
Yeah.
And anyway, we're lucky enough to get the film out there. However, now there's copies that I saw on YouTube not too long ago that somebody took and ran it through, I think, AI or something. But man, cleaned it all up, and it's a clean, pristine version out there.
Interesting.
Oh my God. And so my hope is that one day, maybe, Disney Plus or somebody, especially Disney Plus, only Disney Plus, because they own Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
would get a really because we found out that we thought the film was destroyed, but we found out that at the Academy of Arts and Sciences, it's where they have a film library with just about every film ever made.
Oh my goodness.
That there is a print of the Fantastic Four in their possession.
Oh, well, that's like the best place it could possibly be.
Yes, and we tried. I wrote to them and spoke to them and tried to see if we could get a copy, but they said, well, you have to get permission from the rights owner, not just the distributor, because the distributor was Roger Corman, and they would not have any problem whatsoever of letting us now go get a clean transfer of the film. And we would use they recommend that there's a couple houses that do transfers that they recommend or we have to use, because they know how to handle the film and not make sure that the film doesn't get destroyed or scratched or something bad happens to it. But whoever owns the rights to it, and I'm guessing it was ultimately Marvel or Disney, refused to let us get a copy of it.
What a shame.
And that was just recently. So when I say recently, maybe six months ago or so. But the film, at least we know the film exists. So why doesn't Disney just take the film off the shelf, clean it up? They could release it, as is, or they could spend $1 million or $2 million and put some really great visual effects in place of the visual effects that exist, and show it on Disney Plus, and then sell DVDs where they can have the original and the revised copy of it on a double DVD set or whatever.
Spot on my shelf waiting for that.
Damn it, dude! They'd make a lot of money.
They would. And, I was telling, I think I was telling Joseph Copeland, I was talking to him about it, the same thing. They spent more than $1 million to make Zack Snyder's Justice League a reality when it was in less of a shape than your film was following his departure from the movie. And they made that movie happen. They fixed up everything. They put the money in for the VFX, and they put it on HBO Max during COVID.
Wait, what film was that?
The Justice League film that Zack Snyder.
Oh, yeah.
They did all of that with less to work with. They had to add in more things, and they gave us a 4-hour cut of a movie and put it out there. And for some reason, it seems almost impossible to take a movie that is already done, just add in a few things, just literal touch-ups, some sprucing up, some fixing, some refinement. And with the movie coming out in the next 3 weeks or so, I feel like it would be such a great time to put that movie out there. I mean, they don't even have to put it in. I would love a physical copy. As you can see behind me, I love physical media.
Yeah, I see it, brother.
Even if they didn't do that, I would love to at least see it on a streaming service, because whether people love or hate the movie is kind of beside the point. It's the fact that you guys worked so hard on it, and you deserve the recognition for giving what I still think is one of the most faithful adaptations of the storyline and the characters.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I pray that they will just do something.
I'll tell you, brother, the other thing that I always have to mention is the music.
Mm-hmm.
David and Eric Wurst, WURST, they did the most brilliant job with the music, man. I'm not kidding. And oh my God, you can just go on the internet and just say soundtrack for 1994 Fantastic Four, and you get the entire soundtrack, and it is so good. And we didn't have enough money to do what they wanted to do, so they spent, I think they said $6,000 out of their own pocket, and we went to the Capitol Records building on Vine Street. And down in the basement is the recording studios at Capitol Records. And this is like the studio where some of the greats recorded. Frank Sinatra, Louis Armstrong, all these people. We're in that recording studio, man. You know, Paul McCartney's been down there. Ringo Starr's been down there. I mean, a lot of people have recorded at the Capitol Record Building. And here we are with a 48-piece orchestra. And these guys not only wrote a great score, they frickin' recorded the score for the entire movie in one day.
One day, wow.
With a 48-piece orchestra.
They made that 48-piece sound like 100. It's so good.
Dude, it's so freaking brilliant, man. Well, a 48-piece orchestra is pretty sizable for any movie. That's a pretty big size now for any movie. And man, I'm damn near burst into tears when I was sitting in that room, in that studio, and listening to what they had created and knowing it was going to be in my movie and our movie. And I just went, wow. And just the exhilaration of all of these things that were building up for us, you know. Yeah. Anticipating the release of the film and saying, yes, the world's going to love this. They're going to love it. The fans are going to love it. Man, how can they not love this? Listen to this music, you know, and all of that positive energy and exhilaration and everything. And that was the other, I guess, part of the pain of it being pulled, you know, when you're anticipating something on such a level and knowing that it's not great all the way through, all around, but moments of greatness. And I think the music is great. There's nothing you can say bad about the music for this film. You really can't. It's just, anyway. And that was the other part that really hurt, you know, is that we couldn't get that feeling, that feeling we had to just like crush it, you know. It just got crushed. All that exhilaration and anticipation.
It's tough.
That was the blow, you know. But
yeah,
it
happens. And well, I take that back. It doesn't really happen. It shouldn't happen.
It happens in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's true. That's always my go-to response to try and like make a bad situation feel less. But I guess in this case, it's like, geez, man, what can you do? But you know, I did have a couple more questions, but before I get to those, it wasn't really a question, so much more of a statement. So growing up, you know, when I was a little kid, the cartoons were my Marvel outlet. When 2000 hit, the movies became my outlet. So my first Marvel movie was X-Men, and I went through them. I watched everything that came out after that, and then I would go back, watch Blade, things like that. And the name Avi Arad was one that I had seen on every credit for every one of those things. And as I got older and I learned more, Spider-Man 3 being my, I guess you could say, cathartic moment of understanding with Venom being introduced when Venom wasn't part of the plan. I learned how the business works and how he ran the business, and how he still, sometimes when he tries to run things, it can still happen that way. And to that effect, I was very surprised, but equal parts not as surprised as I thought, to hear about how he had bought every copy of the film to, what was it they said in the Doom documentary, to just burn it all?
Yeah, I mean, there was a rumor that he said that he was going to, you know, I think it was a lot of bluster, because obviously he didn't. But at the time, it was like, I'm going to get all the negative from that movie and destroy it.
I can't. To this day, I still can't understand why. What the goal would have been.
No, well, it was just bluster, you know. But I mean, I used to say it would have been sacrilegious. I mean, you're in the film business, you don't burn film.
Yeah,
simple as that. You know, you just don't burn it. You don't destroy it. You know, look how many millions of dollars have been spent over the years preserving film. The film preservation societies that are out there, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the Cinerama Dome when they re-released My Fair Lady, for God's sakes, you know, after a restoration, and the line was around the block, you know. And that one, and then there was a restoration of Bridge on the River Kwai and the David Lean film, and I got a quick David Lean story to tell you. I was sitting at the lab, at the MGM lab, which no longer exists, at the MGM studios.
Mhm.
My first film was in the soup coming out, and I'm waiting, sitting there in the lobby, you know, for them to call me and say, okay, we're ready to screen your print.
Yeah.
And there's a little stanchion, one of those little poles with a little black sign on it, maybe by 12 inches by 12 inches. And those black velvet, you know, with the lines on them, and you push pin the letters in it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the letters said, white on black, it said, "Welcome, Sir David Lean." And and the thing was like sitting right across from me. I'm looking at it, and I'm in a chair by myself in the lobby, and and I finally look at that. I go, huh? And I'm looking around, and I go, oh, okay, that's interesting. Not 5 minutes later, entourage people walk in, and it's frickin' David Lean.
Wow.
And I go, and I just jumped up. It was like knee-jerk reaction, you know. And I went over to him, and I said, sir. And he's looking at me, and boy, he looked pretty old at that time. And I said, I just have to tell you how much I admire you as a filmmaker. And I mean, your work is just has been so inspiring to me. And he looks at me, and he goes, and he takes his hand. He doesn't say anything yet. He takes his hand, it grabs my hand, and then he puts his other hand on top of my hand. So now he's got my hand in both of his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget how warm and soft his hands were. And he's with a big, heavy, dark English, deep-throated English accent.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "What is your name?" I said, "Oh, it's Oley Sassone, sir." And he goes, looks at me, and he goes, "And you, I take, are a filmmaker here?" And I said, "Yes, sir. My first print is coming out of the," I told him a little bit. And he goes, and he just looked at me, and he goes, "It's so much harder for you young blokes these days than it was for me. I wish you all the best."
Wow.
And that was it. And he walks away, and come to find out, he was at MGM making the director's cut of Lawrence of Arabia.
Huh.
And he was putting back the 24 minutes that the studio took out of the film. He was there to look at the finished product of the 24 minutes that they put back into Lawrence of Arabia. And I was there that day.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love stories like that. That is so awesome.
So amazing, brother.
That is sick. That, talk about meeting a legend. Like that does not.
Oh my God, man. Yeah, it was pretty remarkable time for me to meet this guy right there when my first film was being processed at the lab. It's a trip, man.
I always take moments like that as like a sign of, I don't know, some divine coercion or whatever you want to call it. Like things like that make me go, okay, I'm supposed to be in this spot clearly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely, man.
That's fantastic, man. That's so cool.
Yeah.
But looking forward, coming back to Fantastic Four after that awesome story, thank you for telling that. The new film is coming out in a few weeks. And I was curious, like, what are your thoughts on it? Are you going to be there seeing it with bells on? Like, are you going to wait for it to maybe come to streaming? Like, well, how do you feel about this new Fantastic Four film?
Well, look, as I said earlier, I know how difficult it is for anybody to get a movie made. Mm-hmm. And look, I truly, deep down in my heart, hope that it's a huge success. Mm-hmm. I want the Fantastic Four to finally be, on the studio level, be the success that it was always meant to be.
Yes.
And I'm actually going to go to it when it hits the theater. I can't wait to go see it. Mm-hmm. Because I've seen the trailer, and it is essentially comic book number one.
Yeah.
From what I understand, first Fantastic Four, first steps. So it's going to kind of be a little bittersweet because I'm going to see the big space that they get to operate in compared to the space that we constructed and only had, which was a postage stamp size room. But you know, that's so many years later now, and like Jesus, look, think about the level of technology and AI and visual effects and everything that's just leaps and bounds and beyond, you know. So I'm
different times with all that.
and look, and I feel now, especially, you know, as I get older, I feel like, you know, it was just luck that I got the job. You know, I was there at the right time, right place, and because I worked hard for Roger, I made some good movies for him.
Yeah,
You know, and I just look at it like that and say, hey, man, I'm just lucky in a way to be part of the Marvel universe.
yeah,
To just lucky to be part of the Fantastic Four, particularly the first family. I mean, so that's the way I look at it. And so for me, I'm always going to be rooting for not just the people who put the effort into making the film, because it's like I said, it's hard work, and to get it right, it takes a lot. And
yes.
but I'm rooting for the characters. I'm rooting for the Fantastic Four. I'm rooting for those for them, and the Marvel creation of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. I hope to God, just for the sake of the franchise and the comic books and the history of it all, and the fans, that it's really a good movie.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
You know?
I am for one. So when I was younger and I'd get ready to go to school, we used to have the Boomerang channel where we played like a bunch of old cartoons from the Hanna-Barbera days. And I would every single morning, and my parents would put TV on when I'd get ready for school, and it would be the Hanna-Barbera Fantastic Four. So for me, that was my Fantastic Four growing up. And I used to always tell my friends, you know, whenever the Marvel Cinematic Universe makes a Fantastic Four movie, it needs to capture that Hanna-Barbera feeling. And so when I found out the setting and the tone of this film, I did a backflip in my head. I was telling everyone, I told you so. I was so excited. And I feel the same way even now. I'm very, very eager to see what, you know, this movie has in store for audiences. And with the way that they've done the multiverse, and I hate saying that word now because I feel like it's been 5 years of everyone saying multiverse, but to that effect, every Marvel movie counts. And in my mind, your Marvel movie is in that larger web of universes.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I mean, I feel like it would be foolish to not say. Like, I am hoping in this movie that the Reed Richards of that world sees the Reed Richards of the other worlds, and somewhere hiding or mentioned is Alex Hyde White's Reed, because that would be the coolest thing in the world. So, you know, this one may be the first steps, but you guys really did kind of like chart that course to what everything has come to today, because, you know, everyone will always say that Blade kind of ushered in the modern Marvel movie. And while that's true in many respects, I think that, you know, whether it's the story or the buzz or everything around Fantastic Four, that movie really did kind of chart the course to say, hey, you know, Marvel can do it too. And that's something you can never be taken away from you.
Yeah, true story, man. Like I said, I just feel like after all of these years, it's amazing. Here I am talking to you, and just a few weeks ago, I got, and I don't know if it's going to get published or not, but I was interviewed by the New York Times, and it's like, wow, really?
For a Fantastic Four?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, they called me. I reached out to them about a year or so ago, and I called Joseph, and I said, Joseph Culp, and I said, look, man, I'm going to reach out to this writer for the New York Times, and she got right back to us, you know. But then she said, no, it's not. For some reason, I don't remember the email exactly, but she put it on hold, and then she forgot about it. But I guess because of obviously because of the new film that's coming out, she talked to the editors over there, to somebody, and said, let's give it a shot. So I can't say for sure if it's gonna be published in the paper, but it all comes down to the finished product, and the editors have to look at it and see if they think there's going to be enough interest in it. Absolutely. But there's a good chance that there'll be an interview in the New York Times right around the time the movie's released. So it's kind of cool.
fingers crossed. I'll be reading that for sure. I mean,
Yeah, brother.
this is the time, man. This is the time to get all of this out there. That's why I'm talking to so many people that are part of this film, and still trying to talk to more people that are part of it, because it's important. It's not every day a Fantastic Four movie comes out, which is weird to say because you would think there'd be more abundant, but what it's worth, this doesn't happen often. And a movie like this, at a time like this, where anything truly feels possible in the superhero space, why not, get all the buzz that we can out there. I don't know how many ears or eyes this will touch, but if it touches at least one person who can make a difference, that's cool to me, at least. So
yeah, well, look, man, I like the fact too that it's the 1960s.
yes. Oh yes, that is,
because that's kind of like when I was a kid.
yeah.
You know,
The sci-fi
I'm really dating myself now, but man, I was a kid in the 60s, man, and that's when I said, like, the Beatles have been inspiring to me, and the whole 60s vibe, man. It was a revolution for so many different things, and women and music and style, and and I look back at the Fellini films of the 1950s, like Ivy Tolone and Marcello Mastroianni and all these guys that I were enamored with, with the haircuts and the fine clothes and the cigarettes, and I mean, Jesus, man. And I said, if the Fantastic Four, the new one, hits that vibe, just that 60s vibe, man, and they capture that along with capturing the essence of the characters, man, it'll be a hit, brother.
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up in Florida, going to the Kennedy Space Center for fun. The
Wow.
era of the 60s is like in my blood, with how much, from the aesthetic, and the way that sci-fi was created. All of that is just kind of like just as much a part of my childhood, even though I was born some 30 years after it.
Yeah.
And it's, my dad grew up Sean Connery, James Bond, so I'm growing up with those movies too. Like, yeah,
I love it, man. I love James Bond. I love Sean Connery, man. I love them.
He's probably my favorite Bond, even still. Thunderball's definitely my favorite
totally.
Bond.
Goldfinger, Thunderball, all of those, man.
I actually have a story for
you.
Huh? I actually have a story for you, since you love Sean Connery so much. So my mom, her stepdad used to work with the man who filmed the underwater scenes from Thunderball. And so she knew them. Like, my grandparents at the time would actually have dinner with the family that filmed all of the underwater scenes for Thunderball. My dad, who is in the medical field, he works in the cath lab in the hospital in my hometown. And before he passed away, he actually got to meet and talk to the guy, and how he said that, like, Sean Connery, like, he was talking to Sean Connery at a party, and how, like, I can't remember, Sean Connery, I think, pushed someone in a pool, or like his wife pushed him in a pool or something, but it all comes full circle, I guess. But the 60s is what I guess what I'm trying to say, is that era of film and science and style is just, in my opinion, pretty unmatched. And I'm so happy to see how this movie is going to capture what so many people wanted from the 60s in terms of, science and technology reaching the pinnacle, since like this
totally.
movie. So,
hey, man, but they put a man on the moon in 1969.
Yep. Just
pretty damn good. Think about that.
I know. That's crazy. And again, being such a space nerd myself, like, stuff like that, I'm never going to get old for me. I'm never going to not think about how cool that is. So, to that effect, though, we're talking about the future so much. I want to, before we close off here, I want to talk about, your future. What have you been working on? What are you planning to work on that you can talk about that you would like to share?
Well, interestingly enough, I've got about, my gosh, it's really going on right now in terms of the projects that are on the cusp. But I'll tell you about the one project that I've been working on for years and years is a series about Louis Armstrong.
Wow. All right. I'm here for that.
And people don't know, it's another whole podcast just to talk about his story. Believe me, people don't understand or realize what the man went through. I mean, first of all, growing up in New Orleans, which in a place called the Battleground, it was so rough. I mean, his mother was a prostitute. His first wife was a prostitute.
Wow.
I mean, he, He was threatened by gangsters in the 1930s because, you know, that was during Prohibition, and all the gangsters owned all of the speakeasies and the clubs, and where there was clubs, there was illegal booze, and where there were clubs and booze, there was music, and they wanted the best players, and all the guys that played the best music were black jazz musicians, and all the clientele were white.
Mhm.
You know, hence the Cotton Club in New York City where Lewis actually played. And it was, and whether a lot of people don't even know what the Cotton Club stood for. It was called the Cotton Club because the interior of the club had a plantation theme.
Oh,
And
wow.
all of the talent in the Cotton Club were black and had to be black, and all the clientele were wealthy white people.
That's wild.
And that's why they called it the Cotton Club, because it talked about cotton from the plantations.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was the hippest freaking place in Harlem, but it was still based on slavery in a sense.
Still racist as hell.
I mean, come on, man. So, but the club owners were the gangsters, and one of the badass gangsters back then was a Jewish gangster by the name of Dutch Schultz. And Schultz, Lewis played and worked for him, but he wanted out. He didn't want to be there all the time, so he tried to get out, and he went to California to escape Dutch Schultz. And lo and behold, he gets busted for smoking a joint out there, and the judge was in Schultz's pocket, and they shipped him back to New York. And Dutch Schultz put a gun in Lewis's like this and said, "You play for me, motherfucker, I'll blow your brains out."
Wow.
So Louis Armstrong hightailed it out of the country and went to Europe, and ended up playing in Paris in the 1930s with the Harlem Renaissance in the 1930s. And the only reason he got out of that and came back to America was because Dutch Schultz was assassinated by the Italian five families. Because Dutch Schultz, it was the end of Prohibition. Prohibition ended, booze became legal, but Dutch Schultz still wanted to do things the old way, the gangster way. And the five families said, "No, man, you can't go around killing the chief of police in New York City. We'll never get, you know, where they'll come down on us." And Dutch Schultz said, "Oh, fuck you. I'm going to do what the hell I want."
Wow.
They blew him away in a spaghetti joint in New Jersey. Dutch Schultz. And then all of a sudden, Lewis was free. I can go back to America. So, I mean, just stuff like that. That's just one level, one storyline of many storylines in that series.
Absolutely.
And I've been working on that for years. I've written 10 episodes for the series. It's all done. I've had one or two companies looking at it, and I have a company looking at it right now.
Okay.
That if anybody can do it, they can, brother. So that's, and I'm doing another. I love New Orleans and the stories in New Orleans. I'm working on another one that's interracial love story in the 1950s called Gabriel's Horn. We're casting that film right now. We just got the actor Keith David signed up.
Keith David?
Yeah.
Get out of town. That's awesome.
He's great, man. He's going to play the mentor in the film because it's a 1950s white kid comes down in New Orleans to learn how to play like a black guy and like a black musician. And in particular, Buddy Bolden, who was the granddaddy and the father of improvisational jazz. And everybody still thinks he's still around, but it's a thriller, mystery thriller. The white kid comes into the club, and it's a whole story, but he falls in love with the Creole black singer there, but the club owner doesn't want him there, but there's another nefarious character who's ripping off the black band, who sees an opportunity to use the white guy to help sell the black music, you know. And it's what they did. It was really prevalent back in the 1950s, where, you know, the black artists were getting ripped off all the time by you know, the white promoters and the white record company people and so on and so forth. And even Little Richard, you know, who did Tutti Frutti, said, "I never saw a dime from Tutti Frutti," but yet they had sold the song and stole the song and used people like Pat Boone, the whitest of white people in the world, to do a version of Tutti Frutti, and it was awful.
Not Tutti or Frutti.
You know, because, you know, when Little Richard did, it's like Tutti Frutti, you know, he did it, Tutti Frutti, and then they give it to Pat Boone, and he's like, "Tutti Frutti,
Huh.
Hey Rudy,
That's
tutti frutti. It was like, fuck, are you kidding me, man? But that was what they were doing back in the 1950s, ripping off the black artist, you know. And to
yeah.
this day, it's still a you know, it's a point, man, of contention for black artists to be careful, you know, because they create stuff and then somebody else is ripping them off.
Okay.
So there's that project, and then yet another one that I'm hoping to get done is about the author John Kennedy Toole, who wrote A Confederacy of Dunces and won the Pulitzer Prize for it.
Okay. Nice.
Anyway, that's another whole story too. But those are my three top projects, and I have one more out there that I have a company they just did a movie for Netflix that was like a hit on Netflix for 3 weeks running. The big action movie that I wrote called Heroin Plum,
Okay.
and that's big action, Chinese, you know, mafia, L.A., Taiwan. It's really good, man.
I'm interested in that. That's fantastic. Wow,
Yeah.
I love how many hands in the pots of genres and stories you've got going.
Yeah, man. Well, you
And
know, I wrote this. It's crazy, Nick. Sorry to interrupt, but dude, I wrote most of these things like Heroin Plum. I wrote it when I lived in L.A. You know, almost 20 years ago, and you know, I had a agent who was, you know, don't get me started, but
industry's a process.
yeah, it is, brother. And I just threw it on the shelf and said, oh well, the hell with it. And but then I got a copy of it the other day. Found out my mother passed away back in January. She's 97, and
Oh.
my brother's over there cleaning the place out, and he finds a copy of the script. It's sitting right here. He finds a copy of the script that I had at my mother's house, and at the time it was called Test of Wills. And dude,
Fantastic. It's awesome.
I dusted the thing off, and I read it again, and I went, son of a bitch. There's some really good stuff in it. So I went and I looked at some of the, you know, if you want to learn how to write certain genres and stuff, you download scripts and you read them.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Script reading is the best way to go.
Yeah. So I went online, and I'm going to be honest right now, and I'll let the cat out of the bag. I downloaded one of the Russo brothers action scripts. Not to steal any ideas about story, but look at format.
Yeah.
Look at script format for big action movies and how it's written and how scenes are described and where they put the word beat, or where they put in bones crunching, or where they put in blood splattering, and how they do all of that is important to how a person reads those action scripts in today's market.
Yeah.
So you have to educate, and look, making a film is like doing anything. If you want to do it well, it's continuing education, man. You just have to keep reinventing yourself any way you can, and stay up on the trends, stay up on how things are being done, and most importantly, go look at the things that are getting made and getting sold. And I mean, that's kind of redundant, because if it's made, it's already sold. But you know what I'm saying? And that's how you stay current. And that's what you have to do until you're ready to just stop working.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'm doing that I have to say is I'm still playing music.
Nice.
I'm still playing in a band, and we write our own stuff, and it's just great creative outlet, and we just have a ball doing it, man.
I love hearing all of that, and thank you for that piece of advice for the script reading. I know there's going to be a lot of people whenever they hear this that are going to appreciate that. I know I do.
Yeah.
Oli, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a truly awesome experience. And as a Fantastic Four nerd and a music nerd and a history nerd, this has just been a treat. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, listen, Nick, as I said before, I think it's a privilege. I think I was lucky that how things worked out. And I just thank you again for having me. I really, and I hope, I wish you all the best with this show, and hope you get a lot of listeners for it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so, so much.
You're welcome.